Hey guys, welcome again to the Ultimate Recruiter. I'm Jerred, I'm your host, and I'm here to help guide you to your path to building a seven-figure recruitment empire. Glad to have you join me today. If you like the content you're getting, please like, subscribe, and comment. Let me know some topics you want to hear, and we'll make sure to address them. So again, appreciate you guys joining us today. So last week I did a segment, I did a video on simple but yet effective tools to get started into the recruitment industry. And these were tools that I used in the very beginning of jumping into my headhunting and recruitment efforts. And I had quite a few people end up reaching out, sending me some messages with some good questions and what have you. So please keep that up. One of the questions that I have quite frequent is how did I go about getting my first clients, or how do can you help me get my first clients? Can you give me some guidance? But another very big question that I have that comes up, ironically enough, is what is headhunting? What is a recruiter? What is a headhunter? And I'll try and give that to you in my own terms. So basically, a headhunter is an individual or organization that does specialized recruitment work on behalf of a company. So Company A has a strategic need to make a hire, and myself or whoever goes out and presents some candidates to this particular client, and ultimately that client makes a hire of my candidate and pays me a fee. So that is headhunting, and usually it boils down to very strategic hires. Maybe they've posted a position and they haven't gotten the right candidate, and that's usually whenever they engage a headhunter or a recruiter. So that's kind of more in general terms of what a headhunter is. Typically when a company recruits, why do they use headhunters? So when a company recruits, they're posting positions to, say, like Career Builder, Indeed, LinkedIn, or whatever it may be. And they're more times than not, they're just having to settle on the best candidate who has applied for that job. So what makes a headhunter effective, or what makes them valuable, is that typically a headhunter will go into the market, understand that particular job description, will have multiple calls with that particular hiring manager, and go after the ideal candidate. A headhunter typically will present 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 candidates in some cases for these positions, making the job really hard for the hiring manager and determining who they're going to hire for that position. So good question. And, how has a headhunter paid? Many headhunters go out there and they do contingency work. That's how I got started. And we'll get into some other methods of recruitment, such as retained search and contractors and so on and so forth. But contingency placement is typically the more general one that you see that's out there. And this is where a company, you go do some recruiting work for an organization, and you provide a candidate and they hire, and you get a fee on that. No hire, no fee. But some of the fees can be pretty lucrative. As an example, let's say, you're out there, you have candidate A who's just hired at a base salary of $150,000 a year, and your contingency rate is 25%. The fee that you get for that particular placement is $37,500 for that one hire. Yes, it can get pretty lucrative, and a good headhunter is going to make more than one hire a month. So say you're doing 2 hires a month at that, that's $75,000 a month, equivalent to $900,000 a year. So, it can certainly scale up, and, maybe you won't be at those salaries or those types of positions starting out, but stick with the game, specialize in an area, and I can assure you that you're going to be there in no time. Let's face it too, you may have to do like what I did whenever I first started up. I was working for a lot of less desirable type companies that were out there with less desirable rates, but I was creating a lot on volume. And over time, I started shucking some of those less desirable companies with these less desirable rates, and in turn, sort of put more emphasis and focus on these better organizations who had the better rates, the better names, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, I had to do what I had to do starting out. I had to put food on my table and find out what worked for me. So, and ultimately, too, even though some of these may not be the more ideal type companies that are out there, they're still paying fees. So, and they need people. So the big question that was brought up was, how do you secure your first client, or how did I go about securing my first client? Keep in mind, I had zero experience in agency recruiting, zero. I had some human resources background, but I had zero agency experience. So I jumped into it full bore, started making some phone calls, and man, I tell you, it was very intimidating. I'm sure people on the other end of the line can hear my inexperience and were thinking, hey, who's this rookie on the other end of the line trying to gain our business? And it just was not working out for me. I was falling on deaf ears. It just was not working out. And I knew I needed to change. I needed to change a strategy pretty quick. So, I knew employers were being called on quite heavily in the space that I was putting some focus and some emphasis on. How do I know that? Is because I was in human resources. I was the one being called upon by headhunters and recruiters trying to gain our business and the company that I worked for. So I knew they were getting pounded left and right. One of the big problems that I faced whenever I first jumped into this is I wanted to go recruit for the Fortune 100s, the Fortune 500 companies that were out there, the big, large household names that were out there. And man, it just did not work. As I mentioned, I was falling on deaf ears, did not pick up any client at all. So I had to strategize. And what I did is I came up with two focal points that really helped out me in my process in getting clients. Number one is I needed to have something that a client wanted. And that was a candidate. And I knew my recruiting skills was going to be pretty sharp, and I knew I could get a candidate, but I needed to have a position to work, or needed to have a client that would give me a chance. And number two is I needed to change my mentality of focusing on these larger household name companies to more of the smaller mid-market size companies. And these are companies maybe without an HR presence or a very limited HR presence, maybe some startup companies, but I knew that was going to be something that I put some time and effort into. So going to point number one, finding a candidate. I knew from discussions with various recruiters that I knew out in the industry that, and my prior HR experience, that the toughest to find candidate was an 8 to 15 year experienced professional who has made only one job move, maybe two, in their professional career. And that's a person with 8 to 15 years total experience. So that was going to be my focus. So I knew I needed to go build some credibility out there on LinkedIn. So I got on LinkedIn and I started posting topics, replying to comments, joining groups, and just getting pretty active on there and trying to get some credibility, get people to know who I was and where I was specializing at. And this helped people warm up to me. At the same time, I was also canvassing Career Builder, LinkedIn, Indeed, to see who the companies were that were hiring. And what I was doing is I would go check them out on LinkedIn. I would find out the companies who had little to no HR infrastructure, and I was trying to connect up with these hiring managers on LinkedIn. And, and I was connecting up with quite a few individuals. So what I did next is I started making some phone calls to candidates who fell into that particular band, that 8 to 15 year experience, who's only had one job, maybe a max of two moves into that 18 to 15 year span. So I started making some phone calls. I was asking these candidates, hey, if the right opportunity ever presented itself to you, would you consider making a strategic career move? And to my surprise, many said yes. So I asked them, hey, look, send me a copy of your resume. Let me critique it. Let me have a look at it. I'll let you know what we're seeing out into the market, and I may can give you some pointers to help dress your resume up and polish it up. And I will not send it out to anyone without your consent. So I began to build a rapport with these particular candidates. And at the same time, I was still connecting up with these hiring managers, et cetera. So I would then tell the candidate, after getting a chance to help dress their resume up, giving them some insight with regards to what we're seeing out into the market, and say, hey, candidate A, I'm connected up with hiring manager XYZ over at this particular company, and I know that they're looking to do some hiring right now. Would you be open to me making an introduction in between yourself and that particular hiring manager? Maybe I was connected to a VP of sales, a CFO, a COO, maybe even a CEO. So I was trying to connect with these senior individuals within the organization. And again, to my surprise, many people said yes. So And this was huge for me. I picked up so many clients by going that route, and we call that talent marketing. That's talent marketing a candidate into these clients. And basically, it opened up opportunities for me. It opened up opportunities for these candidates within these clients, and it worked out really well. So that would be one thing to maybe consider. Maybe there's something to take away there, is that try talent marketing candidates into organizations. So going to point number 2, the focal points that I just mentioned was changing my mentality of targeting the larger household names, the Fortune 100s, the Fortune 500 companies, to the smaller organizations, mid-market type companies. And this was game-changing for me. It was a very pivotal point in my career, and to this day, it's something that I put a lot of effort and emphasis on today. So, and in many ways, these types of companies welcomed my help, my resources for various reasons. Maybe they didn't have an HR infrastructure. Maybe they had a very limited HR infrastructure. Maybe their brand, their reach only extended so far out into the market where they weren't able to attract the right candidate to their organization and apply. And that's where my value was. My value was to become an extension of their brand, to go out into the market and bring them candidates maybe who wouldn't ordinarily go apply to their jobs, or directly profile that organization and figure out who their direct competition is, and go cherry pick somebody, go find someone within these organizations. And that worked out incredible. So it was a way that I could bring candidates who wouldn't, again, ordinarily apply to these jobs, and these hiring managers were very welcoming to that particular response. So it's important to know too, when you're providing candidates, you don't want to throw a whole bunch of spaghetti at the wall and just hope something sticks. You want to make sure and target the right ones. This is an example. You get a job description, and in that job description, you have roles and responsibilities, and you have requirements. Out of those roles and responsibilities, you want to identify certain skill sets and certain competencies within that particular job description, as well as you want to look at the requirements. And if they're looking for someone with 8 to 12 years of experience, bring them exactly that 8 to 12 year experience individual, preferably up on that upper end, but someone who's maybe moved jobs maybe once. And I can assure you, if you do that, they're going to be more apt and be more willing to work with you and be like, hey, this recruiter, this headhunter is bringing some really powerful, really strong candidates into the mix. Yes, by all means, let's set them up for some interviews and see where things go. So try those tactics, and I think it's going to help you, because it certainly helped me, and it's a tactic that I use to today. And those companies are very keen or are very willing to pay these $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 recruitment fees if you're bringing these quality candidates to the table. I get so many of these hiring managers that are like, hey, don't bring me these job hoppers, this 1 year here, 2 year there. That's not a fee-worthy candidate. Focus on the people that a client would be willing to pay a fee for. So I hope you find these topics, interesting, informative. Maybe there's something in there that you can take away from. And again, it's not textbook information, but it's just my way and what I've done to help, stretch my career and get my momentum going into building a 7-figure recruitment business. Here to help. Please comment below. Let me know some items. If you have any specific questions, please leave some comments there. Reach out to me. Let me know the topics that you want to hear. And please make sure, like and subscribe to this channel. Let's keep this thing going. And, find me on YouTube at Ultimate Recruiter and on Spotify, Ultimate Recruiter. And until next time, remember, greatness awaits. And this is Jerred signing off.